Do you know what we forgot to do last time?
I was just going to say we should do it right off the top.
All right. Well, hi, Kristen.
Hi, Rachel.
Welcome to Two Mystic Mamas.
You know, I thought about it and I was like, oh, maybe I can go back into an episode and just edit out, grab a snippet and cut and paste it. But then I was like, no, that's not authentic.
Nope. We would have to just start it with either you recording hey, we forgot to say welcome to Two Mystic Mamas, but Rachel's not here, so welcome to Two Mystic Mamas.
-1.
-1. Well, I think that, I don't know, that it just is, because both of us didn't realize it. And it wasn't until a couple days later where you were like, did we ever welcome anyone to the podcast on the last episode? And I was like,
you know what? I felt terrible too, because you had sent me a song to listen to, and I was like, oh yes, like the song, all the things, all the feels, right? And I hadn't responded to the song yet, and I just had this pop up in my head. So my response to you sending me the song was, oh my God, did we say?
Oh really?
Yeah, you sent me the Alchemy song, and then I never responded to that.
Yes, because I sent that because of the podcast we had just recorded.
Right.
That was all about, well.
And the one that we are hopefully going to be having coming up. We have a big meeting next week.
Yeah.
That we can't really talk about yet.
No.
But we do have a big meeting next week that we're very excited for.
Well, we can talk about what we've been manifesting and what we have been putting out there to ask for help and assistance with, which is bringing people onto the podcast that have similar topics of interest and that are spiritually minded and that are interesting as fuck and do the coolest shit. And so that's what we're doing. We're bringing other cool humans into the flow.
So exciting. Oh, it's so exciting. And so all of this is kind of happening and transforming, and a lot of our messaging to you guys in reaching out has been helping us share, right? Please help us share. We really want to build this community because we really fucking believe in it.
We do. And the more people that bring together positive energy of love and kindness and
understanding.
Yeah, it is powerful. It is transformational. It is monumental. Like it can move fucking mountains.
It can. And we actually just got off a phone call with a dear friend.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a really great conversation. And part of that conversation was how we are deemed crazy for being open about these kinds of things in our life, like spiritual gifts, or if you talk to somebody about your dreams or whatever it might be, right?
Yep.
That kind of skirts the metaphysical at all.
Yes.
People think you're batshit crazy.
Well, and the thing is, it starts from a young age, right? Like I remember, and this is why children are so open to the metaphysical world, is because they don't have any boundaries. They don't have any resistance. They don't have anybody in their ear saying what you're doing is bad, right? So growing up, I had an invisible friend, AKA a fucking spirit guide that was always there for me to play with. And always when I was outside mostly, which makes sense because when you're out in nature. And her name was Marnie, and we just used to have tons of fun. And I just remember, but I never had anybody telling me that I couldn't have an invisible friend, but I also don't remember me really sharing with anybody that I had an invisible friend. She just was there. And when I'd go inside, she wasn't there anymore, that kind of thing. But then you grow out of it, or, it's kind of like Peter Pan.
Right. Do you grow out of it, or do you grow into something else?
Yeah, no, I think it's you grow up, right? I mean, there are so many things, speaking of Peter Pan and television, that they all go back to spirituality. They all go back to different practices and different cultures that have to do with the youthfulness that is being carefree and having a childhood and being creative and having an imagination. Yeah. That they're all secular. They all come together. We were watching one of the Kung Fu's last night, Kung Fu Panda 4, I think. and Jack Black is, Poe. Is that his name? I was like,
I actually haven't seen the Kung Fu Panda movies.
okay, well, they're very good. And it's Jack Black, so
my husband,
they're fucking
and
hilarious.
I both love Jack Black.
Yeah,
so.
he's so brilliant. And at one point, he was like, "No, I just want to be the warrior something." It helps if you watch the movie. I was cleaning and the kids were watching it, but in Master Shifu was like, "No, you have to find a successor. Like your time doing this is done." And he was like, "No, I just want to stay here and like meditate and channel all these spirits." And Emily's mom, this guy, he just sounds just like you. And I was like, well, that's a compliment, right? Right?
Yeah, 100%. That's why we have this space, right?
Yeah.
That's why we are bringing other people into the podcast.
Right.
And we are so open with our own experiences because we want every one of you listening to feel the exact same way, that you can honor your own experiences that you're having as you move through this.
And encourage you. Yeah. And encourage you to lean into it.
Yeah.
There's nothing fucking crazy about it.
Well, and to your point, when you were just talking about, it's all rooted in the belief of something, right? And I had an invisible friend as well, which I also never talked about. And my invisible friend only showed up when I was in the car going somewhere.
Oh.
And interestingly enough, though, when I think about, I can still envision what my invisible friend looked like. Can you?
So maybe if I gave it some more energy. I think that I suppressed so much because I feel like my gifts were so strong and I had no one to help me channel what the fuck was going on, that I did start suppressing. I mean, I remember vividly waking up as a child, and this is before central AC, so all the windows and doors were open, and we lived in a very safe area. But I remember looking outside and I remember seeing 3 small little human creatures like walking up the steps to come hang out with me. And I was like, and I just went back to bed. But I think it was that kind of stuff where I was like, I don't know how to handle what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling. What is it good? Is it bad? That sort of thing. So I don't remember. I can't remember like exactly what she looks like, but I feel like she looked a lot like me.
Okay.
Well,
you were just saying when we were in there talking to our friend that you wish that you had known to journal and to write this down when you were 6 years old.
Yep.
But to our friend's point, these things are meant to come to us in the way that they come back to us. And when I look back on my invisible friend, I remember specifically it was a him, and he would jump and take these huge leaps, a leap of faith, if you will, from tree to tree and branch to branch and light post to light post. And I just always remember him being on the journey with me. And as I can visually remember him in my mind, he looks so reminiscent of the Fool on the tarot card, which I didn't even know existed at that point in time.
Right. So kind of like a jokester. Let me do tricks.
Right. And the Fool is the beginning of the journey. It's the beginning of the tarot journey. It's the beginning of one's spiritual journey too. Okay. And in an embarkment on something new. So, they're willing to take a leap of faith. Yeah. Take the plunge. Yeah. So for that to kind of come back full circle as an adult and realize that kind of energy has been there with me all along, kind of makes some things make a little fucking sense.
I know. When it comes full circle and you're like, oh, that makes so much sense. There's a real validation to life and the meanings and the messaging and the movement forward. I can't imagine. I always, when I had my spiritual awakening back in October, I was like, God damn it. Like, why didn't I let myself have this 15 years ago? I knew, that I was gifted, but I can't imagine not doing it with you. And I can't imagine it also not doing it with our other really good friend who's also, letting the peels of the onion, the layers of the onion come off. And it's so for me too, to have that camaraderie that we can lean in with each other and be like, oh my God, you'll never believe what happened. And then have it be like, oh no, I fucking believe that.
Right.
Like what just happened.
Do you wanna tell us all about it?
Well, I feel like we should tell our listeners all about it because it was by no means just me. It was a group effort on so many levels. I will preface it with, it did start with a death. There was a good friend of my father's who passed away after a brief illness. And my dad has been really struggling with just losing her, but also just the thought of death in general and what that looks like. And, you know, my dad is 69, so he's closer to death than, say, a baby that's just been born, right? So we've been trying to like navigate that and work through that. And I was explaining, so this particular friend of his was very into the horse world. You know, I had said to Dad, she's not too far. Just ask for a sign if you feel like you need to talk to her, blah, blah, blah. Well, come to find out, the Kentucky Derby was coming up. And I have never really given too much thought to the Kentucky Derby, but yet you also have connections now to the Kentucky Derby, which also I 100% had something to do.
Within the last, like we were there a week ago.
It's crazy when we start to piece together the signs and how this all came together. And so I had said this to Dad, and on Friday he had called me and we were talking, and this is one of those days that are it's really tough for me because I would have called her and we would have talked about the horses that are running, and we would have discussed, you know, the odds and the jockeys and the blah, 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 and all these different things about, you know, what goes into putting on this particular race. And he's Rach. There is a horse that's running and its name is Mystic Dan. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, what a great fucking name. I was like, that is so great. And I was like, well, why don't you, you know, put a bet on Mystic Dan for me? And the odds were not in her favor. I think it was 20-1, but the day of the race, it was 18-1.
Yeah.
And long story short, Dad said he doesn't bet. He doesn't do online betting, and he doesn't have anywhere close that can do horse bets. I bet you could go to the casino down in Washington here and do it. And I was like, I don't have time for that. What am I supposed to do with the kids? Leave them in the car? I'm not going to be that woman that just is like in the casino.
Kids, I got to go get my fix.
Yeah. No. So I just kind of put it out of mind. And then Saturday at 5 p.m. So the Kentucky Derby runs at 7 p.m. East Coast time. At 5, Kristen calls me and is, hey, what are you doing? What are you guys doing tonight? And I was like, just kind of feeling mopey and just kind of wanted to have a really down night. And not that I have to entertain Kristen and Charlie because, you know, they're basically chosen family. They can come over and I can go to bed, which is kind of what I did. But so I was like, I think I'm just going to, we're just going to hang. And they were like, okay, yeah, no worries. And then I told Jeff that, and he sent them a text and got them.
He was like, absolutely fucking hot. He's like, I'm not going to let Rachel rain on our parade.
Which I'm so glad that he did. So I was dropping, Isla had a 4th birthday party at a Living Treasures, like a living petting zoo kind of deal. And we had gone back to the house to open up presents because we're close with this particular family. And my friend's sister-in-law was there. And she was talking and she's, yeah, my girlfriends and I, like, we go in and we just throw $10 and, then we pull a name and whoever gets the name wins $100 or something. I was like, oh yeah. And I told her about Mystic Dan and how, I was going to bet, but my dad didn't know how. And she was like, oh, you should just download this particular app. And it's like super, super easy. And I was like, oh, okay. So I downloaded this app. And I also followed Dave Portnoy on Instagram, and he does a lot of betting. And so I like verified that he was also using this app because he's like trustworthy in the betting world, I guess. And long story short, I put $20 down on Mystic Dan to win. And I put $30 down on win, place, or show. So it's like $10 a piece. As we know now, Mystic Dan won the whole fucking thing. And it was the closest race in 150 years of the Kentucky Derby that 3 horses were in the final stretch.
I mean, that photo finish was wild.
Bananas. So Kristen and Charlie literally walked in the door, I don't know, a minute after the race had ended. And Jeff and I were
Your faces were like, and I was like, did you watch my video that I sent you? And I was like, what? No, I was just driving down here.
Yes, I know. I know.
What's happening? I couldn't, like, the energy was so heightened and I couldn't get a read on it, like, immediately walking in the door because it was like
good or bad.
Yeah, it was just a lot.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh.
Yeah. And I had made a video right before the race went off that was like, I'm going to win a bunch of money and, you know, the odds are not in my favor and blah, 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 blah. And then I did. Well, we did, because
there you go.
I had said to Kristen, I was like, listen, I only bet on that horse because of the podcast and because we are, you know, looking to invest a little bit of money into some additional equipment for the guests that we want to have on. And so I was like, this is all for the podcast.
It's just amazing how things can come into your life.
Yeah.
When you're open to accepting them.
Yep.
I mean, what a cool thing to just experience and celebrate too.
I know. Well, I think you left the energy at
Churchill Downs.
At Churchill Downs.
Yeah. Charlie was there touring around.
I know. And then Mystic Dan was like,
yeah.
Oh, there's special energy here.
Yep.
Because that horse was not slated to win. Not even place. Yeah, so I won $727.90.
So exciting. Thanks, universe.
High five. So there you go. There's a spirit guide story for you, because that was none of that was on my radar.
Right.
Had none of the spirit guides, had none of the people that have passed come through and given messages. None of that would have happened. I have never bet on the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
Ever.
Never.
I've never had an inkling to bet. It's not something that was, you know, again, people that do this, I think they said there was like 156,000 people at that race. That's a lot of fucking horse-loving, hat-wearing, mint julep drinking motherfuckers. They had a $5,000 mint julep.
What the fuck is in it?
Oh, not much. It's the cup that it was a commemorative 150 year. It had factory-made white sapphires and gold-plated, blah, 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 $5,000 for 3 ounces of Woodford Reserve.
So it's just some bourbon in a fancy cup.
Yes. Just 1,000% yes. And they sold out of it.
What? How many of them did they make? That's no way.
I'm telling you, there is so much money in horse racing. Not just like
commemorative cup go. I hope it goes to like rehabilitating horses or something.
It does go to a charity.
Good.
Yeah. No,
I was
for
about
sure.
to get real fucking angry.
I don't know.
Ramping up.
I don't know what percentage of it goes to a charity.
More information.
But they did say that the proceeds go to a local charity. I think in Louisville that has something to do with children. All right. So Kristen, tell me about some of your funky and fantastic spirit guides.
Yeah. So leading into this, I would say for a few days, I was having crazy experiences of energy. And I kept telling you about them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I woke up the one day. Was it Thursday? Regardless, I woke up one day and it was like 1,000,000 spirits were trying to talk to me at once. And I was like, what is happening? Just constantly receiving like a flood of messages.
Mm-hmm.
And then that day, every morning I pull a card. And I was feeling drawn to pull many. I mean, I must have pulled like 12 cards.
Yeah.
And everything was like, there is something huge coming. Like something huge is coming for you. Like just this overwhelming energy. And so I had, talked to you about all these things that I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And the energy just kind of continued on. I felt like throughout the there were like 3 days there that were like this really heightened sense of receiving messages.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I told you this. I did 3 tarot readings for other people in that time as well. And then on Friday, I think it was, you and I got off the phone and Charlie was like, go sit down and meditate. You have 10 minutes, just go sit and meditate. So I go and I sit in my egg chair. I have this fabulous egg chair in my bedroom. And I have my Palo Santo in one hand and a notebook. And then I just turned on some music that was going to help get me there kind of quick. It's kind of like...
get you there kind of quick.
Right? It's like you got to put something on to get in the mood, I guess.
Yep.
So...
Yep. You weren't doing that too while you were meditating.
I was not diddling the spirit guide.
We need to come up with a word that combines meditating and masturbating at the same time. What would that be?
Masturbating? I don't think so.
No, I don't think that works.
This is like tantric masturbation or something.
I bet that's a thing.
100%. It's got to be a thing.
That's got to be a thing.
So, no, there was no diddling was involved.
No. Okay.
And as I'm sitting there and I'm writing this, I just start to see spirit guides in very real form all around me. And I can feel them. And I can tell you where they're placed. I can tell you what they look like.
Yeah.
In some instances, I could even have a name come to me. And for me, this was like I think for anybody, this would be like a big, overwhelming experience.
Totally.
Because it took me back to when I was like in my teen years, and I could very clearly read auras and very clearly talk to and receive messages.
Yeah.
From various spirit guides.
Yeah.
And that part of myself had been squashed for a long time.
Yep.
Right. And it's been, quite a few years now. I've been on this journey to coming back.
Yeah.
So all of these crazy big feelings and feeling so pulled and drawn to the work that we're doing, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that so much.
Have you ever heard of like astral projection or anything like that before? And we can get into that a little bit more. But that's basically where you're coming out of body, right? And feeling yourself projected into another space. And there's so much to receive in those moments. It's really hard to take it all in.
Totally.
So if you are at a place in your journey where you're going to, receive messages, whether it's a voice memo on your phone or a journal that you're writing something in, it is going to be so hard for you to take it all in. And then to take it from there and the next step, which I'm in now, which is trying to understand the messages. Right.
Because sometimes, that's part of it, right? You receive them, you write them down, and then you have to process them. And then you have to kind of, what does it all mean? What?
Well, right. Because it can come in the ways of healers and protectors and guardians and animals and messengers. And I mean, there's so much information to download in those moments when you open up, because like we've talked about before, they're all around us. But when you open that up and you let that in, it is like opening the door to a sunshiny day when you've been in the dark for 3 days.
Or as I like to also use, it's like drinking water out of a fire hose where you're just getting fucking blasted. And you're like...
We've already ascertained there was no fucking blasting.
Maybe not in your world. Yeah. We also promote masturbating if that is something that can channel you into a good place before you go and meditate.
Yeah. Have you ever done any like tantric sex or anything like that?
I have not.
Okay.
Very interested to learn more. Do you remember back in the day when, you didn't have 19,000 ways of streaming all of the information all the time? HBO used to have different series, like sex series, where they would have, what's it called? Not tantric sex, but what's the
Kama Sutra?
Kama Sutra, that's it. And they would have documentaries of couples that would do Kama Sutra. And I would always just kind of look at them and be like, I don't know. But now, again, and when I say I used to, I'm talking early 20s before I was in a very committed, loving marriage where, now I'm like, oh, I get it. Because there is something about having strong intimacy with someone where you're passing and exchanging energy that can manifest into a sexual connection kind of thing.
Oh, 100%.
Which, so I have not ever gone down that path, but I think it is, I think it is super fascinating. And
that's another expert that we could have on the podcast.
For sure. Sometimes I think, we're talking about like crazy, Jeff will never call me crazy, but sometimes he's like, you're voodoo, woo, 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 if he wants to get under my skin or whatever. But I feel like some of that stuff he would be like down for,
Right. You got to make it relatable.
Yeah. We went to a restaurant last Thursday on our date. And the last time we had gone there was right after I had my Reiki session where I told him I had magical powers. I was like, oh, remember last time we were here? And I told you I was going to quit my job because I have magical powers. He's all, fuck. Okay.
What's she going to tell me now?
Yeah. I remember after I did that, he was like, he just looked at me real serious and was like, thank God this is not our first date. I would have definitely been like, peace out, Boy Scout.
I mean, you were still your truest self on your first date, so.
100%. I mean, I told him on our second date, that I wanted him to be the daddy of my babies.
Yeah.
Doesn't get more authentic than that.
To sidebar a little bit here, we've brought up authenticity twice now. And I had a meeting with a reconnection, I would say, with my somatic therapist and coach. And her and I were talking in a very candid way. Mm-hmm. And it was so beautiful, but she was sharing her own experience. And I would love to talk to her a little bit more about this, as she had always viewed herself as a very authentic person of integrity. But at the same time, she was constantly self-editing. Mm-hmm. And so she was telling me about this huge arc she's had over the past year of going and realizing that was bullshit, that you can't be authentic and living in yourself if you're constantly self-editing who you're putting out there for other people to see.
Yep.
And
no, for sure.
I just think that, I don't know, it reminded me of that. And I wanted to share that because I think we do a lot of that. Now we have editing that we do within the podcast. Obviously, there's stuff that, we've talked about our private life that remains private, that we're not necessarily going to share with people because there is a level of privacy that we want to retain as we put ourselves out there.
Yes. Yeah.
For the world.
Yep. And I think that's a safe thing to do.
Right.
Because you can totally share authentically and on a deep level, but still maintain respect and boundaries and privacy. And there's certain things that, quite frankly, yes, we've experienced trauma and maybe we too are still working through it in a very private way that until we get on the other side of it is not something that we want to necessarily divulge to the world. But as the podcast evolves and grows, so do we. And we could get to a point too where, that's the fascinating thing is there's no end. Like it just is. As life happens, we share it with you guys. And yes, there are things that have happened in the past that we share that come, full circle. But, we do a very good job of showing up in our truest selves, but still maintaining a certain level of privateness and just, intimacy within our own self that you don't have to share everything with everybody.
Well, this is boundary setting, right? Mm-hmm. And this is something that kind of relates back to what we're talking about within spirit guides too, is that once you open those floodgates, right, and you are receiving all of these messages, how do you set boundaries? How do you protect your energy in order to continue to go about your life?
Yep.
And still be kind of receiving all these messages and feeling like we do as empaths, all the energy of the room.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'll dive a little bit into this as far as like my morning ritual goes. So for me, I believe very strongly in divine source energy, AKA God for me, with a Christian foundation. And then I also believe in the band of archangels and in guardian angels. And so I think for a long time, I always struggled with when I knew I had to make a big decision, or if I knew I was feeling a certain way prior to this awakening, I could feel very alone. I could be very in my head about, I have Jeff, and yes, I have really good friends, but you can still feel alone even though you have support. And when I realized that I'm actually never alone spiritually, ever, I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't have to carry this. I can ask my guides for help. I don't have to have this burden on my shoulders about, a financial hardship or a disagreement with a good friend or, longing for a job that like whatever it is that you're struggling with, you can ask for assistance and help. And I think that having spirit guides, to your point, the more that you are attuned, the more that you ask for their help because of the law of free will, the more that they will help. They're always physically there. You can't see them, but
right.
Just
sometimes
ask.
Sometimes you can feel them.
You can't see them if you're clairvoyant.
Right.
So in the mornings, I call on and invoke that core group. I also invoke the ancestors that have gone before me and the indigenous people of this land, because yeah, they are incredible. And then I just simply ask that the dome of white light come down from above and just surround me and protect my energy from those who do not deserve it or need it, but share it with those who do. And don't allow me to absorb other people, places, things, energy that are not going to serve me for my greatest and highest good. Yeah. And then I just say, and so it is. Amen. But I do not forget to do that. And if I do forget to do it, I stop and immediately do it. Yeah. For 41 years, I was not protecting my energy. Mm-hmm. I was willingly giving it away and absorbing it without any sort of, hey,
oh yeah,
don't do this.
I will frequently pop myself in a little bubble of protection.
and I will say this for you people, you listeners out there that work in corporate America, you do a lot of Zoom meetings or you do a lot of in-person meetings, meetings to have meetings. Gotta love those. This is a ritual that will help you so much. There's so much energy and animosity and bullshit that gets passed along in those meetings that is not yours to absorb. And it happens all the time. If I could put something in a corporate bubble that would I would love to see worked on is before any meeting starts, there's an energy protection prayer. Okay, everybody bring down your white light and protect yourself. Nobody absorb anybody else's energy, and let's just stick to the agenda.
I feel like there's some dickhead out there that's not going to be a fan of that.
Well, I'm sure HR would be like, no, we're not going to do that.
There's a lot of times where things will come to us in different ways. When we've talked about kind of leaning into your senses before, I had an experience last week on one of those days that I had told you about where when I came home and I walked into my house.
Yes. Yeah.
I immediately smelled my grandmother's house and my maternal grandmother, and warmth. Mm-hmm. And never in my life has she ever come to me before. But it was like this immediate knowing. And it reminded me because I had a meeting earlier with a previous client who was sharing a story. And the story made me think of my grandmother. I was like, that's 100% something that my grandmother would have done. Your ancestors, your spirit guides, your guardian angels, they can come to you in a variety of ways. Mm-hmm. They can come to you in the form of a flat tire because something ahead of the road, they want to stop you from going down the road too fast, or whatever it might be.
I get messages on a particular app. I have an app that sends me notifications all the time, but also will send me direct messages from my angels and my spirit guides.
What?
Yeah. But it's not uncommon that you will receive messages either through your television or if you're listening to music, but also like I get an app through my phone, or I get messages through my phone on this particular app that is, I know it's 100% from my angels, because has nothing to do with the app. I've also received messages when I've been typing emails before I quit my last job, where I was just like focused on the keyboard, blah, 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 like whatever, writing down this message. And I look up, and highlighted in the middle of this email was, "You are amazing. We're lucky to have you." And I was like,
oh, I love that.
What? So your spirit guides, your angels that are surrounding you, the indigenous people of this land, your ancestors, that they love you, and they want to love on you. They want to help you. And for me, getting those little anecdotal messages throughout my day, they're inspiring. It gets me so excited and motivated when we like conceptually can understand the big picture of why we're here on earth and what impact we have to make on this world and on each other. And maybe I would just want to end it with, my hope for you is that you are in your synergy and you're in your flow. When you open yourself up to that and you ask for that help and that guidance, it will be provided.
Is that a warbler?
That's a singing a song.
I know, I could hear it so clearly through your mic. Yeah, go through your day today with curiosity
and
of what messages that you can receive.
And write them down.
Yeah.
That was a great piece of advice when I was taking my angel practitioner course, was start writing down the messages you receive, because they will add up, and they will add up very quickly, and you'll be surprised how many you get every single day.
100%.
You know?
And then you'll end up with $727 from the Kentucky Derby. Thanks, Mystic Dan.
This podcast, let's just dedicate it to Mystic Dan. We should try to figure out where she is.
You want to go visit Mystic Dan?
Well, you know, the ironic thing about this is I don't even like horses. You know this. I've talked to you about this. I think they're majestic, but they have giant ass teeth. And if you get kicked by a horse, I mean, you can fucking die. If you fall off a horse, you can die. There's so many ways to die with horses.
Some ways to die.
But really, like, have you ever seen a horse smile? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have a profile picture. Oh gosh, I'll have to go back in the archives and see if I can find it. But I was in Savannah and I took a selfie
with a horse. You know, they're not called selfies.
They're ussies.
Ussies. We introduced Kristen and Charlie to Ted Lasso this weekend.
Obsessed.
They're hooked. Yeah, I think they're beautiful. Unbelievably beautiful creatures, but I'm not a fan as far as like.
How do you feel about a Pegasus?
I mean, I think I would still be like real scared.
A horse with wings. How are you going to be scared of that? It's like an angel horse.
It's still a horse. I'm pretty sure a Pegasus, I mean, you're just bringing in an element of giant ass wings. What if they land? What if the wings like close on you?
They're wrapping you up in their love.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Also, I think it would hurt. Anyways. All right. So
we love you guys.
We do.
Thanks for supporting us. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for sending us the energy too. We feel it.
We do.
And we appreciate it very much.
Lots of love.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.